Since April, UK recruitment firms have faced a wave of cost increases, and if you're feeling the pressure, you're not alone. Today, we want to explore how these changes are forcing us to rethink our approach to staffing and how we can adapt without sacrificing performance and profitability. I'm joined today by Jonathan Levine and Warwick Glossop from Outsource SA, and we're going to be discussing how businesses can navigate the national insurance increases and cost pressures on recruitment, and how technological innovation and outsourcing is a way through these challenges. So I'll pass over to Jonathan and Warwick to do some introductions.
Sure, good to see you, David, and thank you very much. I'm Jonathan Levine, and I've got 25 years experience in recruitment with initially Morgan Hunt, UK's, it was the biggest public sector recruiter, and then moved to Major Players, which was the UK's biggest creative media recruiter, and that's where I met Warwick. He joined as RFC, and we worked together for 8 years. 9 years?
Just under 8 years, yeah.
Just under 8 years. And then Warwick came up with the idea for Outsource SA, which I thought was brilliant. And I asked to join, and Warwick said yes, and here we are, just on a year into the business. And we see it to be a really growing market in the UK, and with good reason, because there's a couple of things that have changed dramatically. Obviously, post-COVID, the ability to work remotely and the acceptance that is going to be something that is a normal way to operate, which has been really good for opening up, global talent, the ability to hire pretty much anywhere, which for South Africa is incredible because, as we'll go into the reasons a little bit later, but the other thing is, the increased labour costs in the UK have put a real pressure on UK businesses. And it's something that, this partnership, David, with Firefish, we think is brilliant, because the two sides, the technology that you bring to increase, the ability for recruiters to work certainly a lot smarter, to do a lot more, coupled with, our service to provide external support in roles that work well for outsourcing, gives the UK recruitment market a real ability to improve process and cut, unnecessary costs, ultimately, boosting profitability, which is really, as businesses, what we all want to do.
Hi, David. I'm Warwick, the other side of the business. I saw the business 18 months ago. John joined, like you said, just over a year now ago. My background is finance. I've been doing it since I feel like I was a puppy, honestly. It's 17 odd years in finance through various different companies, ITV, the London Metal Exchange, and then I ended up at Major Players with Jonathan, and that is where I saw the impact of staffing costs, if I'm honest with you. Not only finding the right employees, but also finding them at the right cost. And then with costs going up, it just kind of hurt. So yeah, the idea of Outsource SA came to fruition from there, which is, great.
Excellent. So it's probably worth giving the audience an overview of what's changed since April. I'm sure most of the audience will be aware, but there might be some that don't. So we've seen employer national insurance contributions increase from 13.8% to 15%, as well as the deductible threshold being reduced from £9,100 to £5,000, which is meaning less tax relief for payroll heavy businesses. So what effect have you seen on the businesses that you guys are working with as a result of these changes?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest impact is, realistically, anybody that earns £30,000 roughly, the company pays an additional 850 odd quid a year more. So if you're a consultancy, a staffing business that has 40 or 50 consultants, each of them will obviously might not have a base that is that, but will have commission structures, so they should flex, and at the end of the year will probably average out over 30 grand. You're going to be paying just shy of £1,000 more per person that you have in your entity. 40 grand at the end of the year is 40 grand. The bottom line, it comes off the bottom line quite quickly. And that's probably the biggest wake up call for recruitment companies at the moment, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah. No, one thing that we are seeing, and it's being evidenced, not just within our job flow, but across the market, things like the BDO business barometer, we are seeing less confidence in businesses, and with recruiters, the nature of their job being dependent on having a healthy job market for jobs to work, but now also seeing that their growth or their traditional models of growth being squeezed in terms of adding more headcount. It's really a double-edged sword for them. In terms of we've got less jobs to work, our clients are less willing to work with us, and if we want to grow, it's going to be a lot more expensive, not just on the hiring side. It's certainly an interesting time and an interesting set of challenges for the market.
Yeah, but I think what's good when these things come along are the good businesses, the businesses that are led well, really look at the opportunity of how they can change how they're operating. And you touched on it there. The traditional way is to increase headcount and to try and increase productivity per head, which we're in a different world now, and it really is, and it sounds like a cliche, but it's much more about businesses working smarter and certainly being more agile. And those two things I think are what Firefish as a software platform offers and Outsource SA offers when it comes to how you can staff a business more effectively and more intelligently, and the products they use as well. That's what I think we see a lot of businesses that we're talking to are finding and want to explore. And I think it will become more and more completely normal for the idea of really good intelligent software coupled with outsourced and offshored talent.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So how are you finding within the market that the recruitment leaders are viewing things like payroll, compliance, maybe what would be seen as non-revenue generating roles? Are they finding that they're looking at not having them internal and focusing the growth on revenue generating hires?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, that's not necessarily a new thing either. We've spoken to a lot of businesses who have sort of dipped their toe into that, and particularly with those roles. Of course, the non-billing roles are a killer for recruitment firms, particularly when you've got firms doing a lot of, contract and temp, running big payrolls and things like that. There's a lot going on in the back end of those businesses. And we've come across businesses who have tried outsourcing to India and to the Philippines. And it's worked in so much as there's been a cost reduction, but the difficulty businesses have found is certainly there's a cultural and a language barrier that has made it not as effective a process as it can be. So, the South African model works really, really well because, you're still saving, up to 50% of salaries. But equally, you're dealing with people who are only an hour, 2 hours at most away on the time difference, culturally aligned, the language aligns, working in industries that, very, very similar, even without, although we have now come across a lot of people in South Africa in our network who have experience working remotely for the UK businesses. We've also seen people coming out of a South African business moving directly into a UK business remotely, and there being absolutely no loss of output. And if our business leaders come to us and say they're really surprised that the people working haven't actually at that point had UK experience, because it's so aligned that it's seamless.
I think I want to add that the companies that we're talking to don't necessarily want to get rid of a UK presence, and that's not our game plan at the end of the day. They want to add to their UK presence. They want to increase the efficiency and reduce the costs at the same time. So they're not firing everybody in the UK and hiring people abroad, right? What they're doing is, they'll have a head of payroll potentially in the UK, and then they'll have 2 payroll admin people, depending on how many they need, who do the grunt of the work. They can do it before they even wake up, so they'll have all the work done before the 10 o'clock deadline comes in the UK, because they've been up for an hour, they've been working for an hour before the start of the workday here. Finance is the same concept. You don't have to. Very few people are looking at getting rid of their team. What they're trying to do is help their team and say, great, there's 2 resources in the back for your finance team. Get them to do balance sheet recs, allocating payments, all that stuff. That can be done before we even walk into the office. And that's the benefit of it. They're still there for, 70, 80% of your workday, because it's only 2 hours or 1 hour. But them starting earlier is the win. So, if you start your business at 8 o'clock here, that's 9:30 in South Africa. Get them to start at 8:30 in South Africa, which is pretty standard. And then it's 7:30 here. They get a whole hour of work done. I mean, all of us know when you don't get interrupted from work, how much more work do you get in that 1 hour? You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. So that's what we're looking at. That's more the conversation we're having than it is to say we want a whole new team in South Africa because we're getting rid of a team. It's not looking like that. People aren't going down that route. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It's almost hires that they wouldn't make now with the increased costs, not just
exactly
on the payroll, but if we think of the inflation that we've had in the UK over the last few years, things such as laptops, staff perks, and even the cost of, buying people coffee for an office, and the cost of the office itself, that's all increased. So are you finding then that the budget that they're freeing by outsourcing to South Africa, they're using to make strategic hires in the UK, so like customer-facing hires, and hiring more recruiters as a result?
Not necessarily. I mean, some businesses will. We've actually seen it across the board. What we really do like seeing, though, is that reinvestment of the money that's being saved on salary going back into, sure, occasionally it's externalized, but also internal training, or a pay bump for the people who have been with the company for a period of time. Just being able to reinvest the money that is being saved is something that the good businesses are doing.
Yeah. And what kind of things are you seeing them investing in? Is it technology? Is it more towards the AI side of the technology that's emerging?
Well, I think it's a couple of things. So, like I mentioned, training is something that I think sometimes gets put by the wayside, which is really, really important for staff to feel valued and to improve in what they're doing. But absolutely, the technology side, we're living in an amazing time, technologically speaking, where the advancements are incredible. It's happening so quickly. In fact, not that we can talk about it now, but some of the things you were saying that Firefish will be releasing imminently, that's sort of stuff that absolutely changes the day-to-day workings of a recruiter. Even 3 years ago, a recruiter was to see what the systems they're able to use now are capable of, it would blow them away. And so, the money can go back into that. But what is also quite impressive is that it's not a huge amount of money going into these technologies now. It's not as cost prohibitive as it was. So I think it's not a one or other reinvestment of that money. They can sort of spread it across various things. But yeah, I mean, the technology side is really exciting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We are seeing from our monthly job flow that when we look at the recruitment activity, it really shows us that there needs to be more effort now per placement than kind of before. And really, the best performing agencies are using automation. They're using flexible delivery models really to overcome those challenges. So automate tasks such as CV parsing, CV formatting, writing adverts, identifying and re-engaging candidates, and their database of stuff that would maybe be really time intensive. That's not, direct face-to-face selling time, but still really important. So, we're seeing that, the agencies that are really succeeding are freeing up their recruiters to do, a lot more selling time by kind of automating their admin. So even things like AI note taking is absolutely, huge in the market. You barely go in
Definitely.
a meeting now without a bot online.
Yeah.
And it's also
Definitely.
improving the quality of the output. If we're to be honest, not every recruiter is the best note taker in the world. I'm pretty sure that none of the recruitment owners that are watching this are going to argue with that. Or advertising. People have all different levels of skill when it comes to that, and it gives you a nice baseline of quality that the business can rely on.
Yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely. And that continuity, because I think that's real key in recruitment, because obviously there's people going to come and go within a business, but if you can look back over your database and there's that continuity of how things are recorded, like you say, those sort of ultimately mundane tasks that in the past have been done, skilling candidates and things like that. Like you mentioned, the AI parsing, when you're going to get that accuracy of parsing, so then your searching becomes spot on. And then ultimately, like you say, you give the consultants that time back, because recruitment is a people business as much as we want to rely on technology, and absolutely we should. It's similar with the outsourcing, right? We'll talk about this as well. There's points where outsourcing is really, really good, and there's points where technology is really, really good, and it's the really good business leaders who work out what are the best points to use those two things. Because when they're used properly and you give the consultants the time back, then they can build those relationships with clients and with candidates, and that's ultimately where you'll be successful.
yeah, no, absolutely. We're really seeing it's not about replacing the recruiter. It's about freeing them to have the biggest impact in the business. And the best agencies that we're seeing that are doing that, are finding that they're generating 30% up to 30% more revenue per recruiter through doing that. So it really challenges, the old model of, okay, we want to grow our business, we need to, hire more recruiters. It's what can we do to get the recruiters that we have that we know can build? Because we always know with recruiters, traditionally it's always been a risk bringing people on. They usually have quite a 3 to 6 month runway to start billing. And then it start again if that doesn't work out. But if you can get people, that are in the business that have been proven to be successful, and then apply the technology to really allow them to perform better, that's where I think we're going to see really huge impacts over the next few years in terms of the market. Even the staffing industry analysts have found that using things like AI for improved job matching is resulting, 96% of the companies that are doing that are seeing increased revenue growth. But at the end of the day, the job matching is just the first part of that. We still need the recruiter to go and manage that whole process and close that revenue at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's the key, the closing the revenue part. But so like you say, the AI parsing comes in, then the matching, all of that's really, really accurate, and then you get the people to come in and then close, to speak to the candidate, to nurse them through, to avoid the counter offers, to keep that whole process, like you say, tied off.
So one thing that people might say to Outsource SA in the days of AI and automation is why should we outsource? Why not give that over to AI to do? So things like accountancy, people let's say that profession's going to disappear to AI. Resourcing, we're seeing a lot of kind of resourcing and outreach tools automated through AI now as well. So what would you say to someone that was saying, okay, let's just get the AI to do the whole thing?
Yeah, well, I think the thing is there's going to be people that overextend their reliance on AI, and I think it's always been the case of being really strategic when looking at their business. Not everything is right for AI, and look, maybe in the 5 years from now, it'll be a very different landscape.
You're going to be eating your head for sure.
Yeah, of course. But currently, we're not there yet, and I think we've got to be really careful with the reliance on it. It should always be a tool that's used and not a replacement that's relied on. So the businesses we speak to, it's very much about, okay, let's look at the business as a whole. Let's see where the potential for process improvement, where technology improvement, but equally where headcount is going to be really helped by outsourced or offshored models, because currently there is still an absolute need for it. And hopefully, it remains that way. Like I said, and I've always said this, it should be a tool and not a replacement for what we do. There's a real danger, particularly when it comes to finances. Without wanting to bring up an awful example, the Horizon post office thing is that great example of being overly reliant on technology. It's a dangerous thing to think we can replace people completely.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just kind of feel that before we started this conversation, we had a 10-minute chat of just chat. Do you know what I mean? You kind of still need to have a conversation. You can't have a conversation with AI. I mean, you probably could. I've never tried, but you probably could, to be honest. But that's we're human beings, aren't we? At the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is, that there is nothing that can stop you, AI taking a finance role, a resource role, a consultant role, anything else. There probably isn't anything stopping that, bar the fact that most people want to talk to someone, through the process. I want to talk to a consultant. The consultant wants to talk to a resourcer. The resources talk to the candidate, and the candidate's ready to roll. That's kind of a process. In finance, you have a problem submitting your expenses, David. You don't want to. You want to talk to someone, don't you? You want to pick up the phone and go, listen, I've got a code error here. I don't know what it is. What am I doing wrong? The guy on the other end goes, oh, yeah, you didn't tick a box and put a date in or something. That's pretty much what we want. If AI takes it all, it just, all these self-serve platforms sometimes feel a bit, I don't know, what's it, clinical. And it's not a very nice process, if you know what I mean. So at some point it might, is the honest truth, I suppose, what we're trying to get at. But what we're trying to do is help you until that point, because we see a way you can save money, you can benefit your team, and stuff like that. But using the tool correctly to save your consultant's time, your resource time, your parsing time, just general time. Use AI for that side of it.
Sure. And so probably one of the other things that I would see outsourcing being particularly powerful for is if we're seeing more of a move away from contingency hires and contingency models to project-based models. It really allows you to scale fast and stay flexible based on those projects. How are you seeing your clients working in terms of maybe not using contingency models these days?
Yeah.
To be fair, most of our clients have taken on like full-time employees, realistically, because of the cost reduction. They don't have to worry about scaling up or down to the degree, because the person's at a level where they're capable of having them there the whole time, and they're doing enough to keep themselves busy. And then obviously when they scale up, that person ramps up. But when they scale down, there's no point to lose the person, and then they have to get someone new in, and then train someone new in. So we haven't really seen the scale up, scale down ourselves to much. People are scaling up as in they're adding more people to their book. But because of the amount that they're able to save, NI, pensions, general salaries, staff onboarding, and everything else, they really are looking at more keeping them as a staff member than anything else.
Yeah, it's funny because we have had these conversations at the start where clients have no experience with offshoring, and their idea is, can we just do this for 3 months and then we'll see? And absolutely, you can do that. But what we have found, like Warwick said, is the 3 months comes and they're really, really happy and really impressed. I think it will get more popular because people will realize it is just a really great way to for a business to operate with the remote resource.
Sure. And so how are you finding then that the remote resources integrating with the team in the UK? Are they attending meetings? Are they, do they have that? So I think probably a big part of working for a company, and one thing that I think since, over the last couple of years, since more businesses are going back to the office, they're wanting to have that collegial attitude and collegial environment in the office where people, are interacting with each other, they're collaborating with each other. How do you find the outsourced element of the business fits in with that?
Yeah, we've always been really keen when one of the first things we speak about with the client is the importance of the remote, the offshore person being to feel part of the business. They have to, to work well, you have to feel, you need that buy-in. You want to feel part of a team. So, absolutely, they're part of all the meetings remotely. We have a couple of clients who have flown over the person for Christmas parties or socials, which is really lovely. We've had other clients who have gone out to South Africa to meet them. Obviously, that's a pretty appealing thing for some people. It's a beautiful part of the world. But that is really important. It's really important that person does feel part of it. And it's not so difficult to do. Technology is a real enabler of this model.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The Firefish being a remote first company as well. We've, certainly you can work to achieve that. And, if you get together, a few times a year, you've got the right structures in place for collaborating and getting together as a team online. In the meantime, I think that works really well. We've seen it work well for us over the last 5 years now, believe it or not. But yeah, so in terms of the maybe some of the cost savings with outsourcing, how you guys got a calculator? Do you want to show that?
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up because we're pretty proud of this. This was actually built using AI, one of their no-code web builders, which I think you'll show now, and then there'll be a link to it, I believe, as well, where you can see the London salaries and outside of London salaries all collated through the latest salary surveys. And then it will show you the comparative amount you'd be paying for a South African resource, and those figures are all live from placements we've made.
And so what roles do you see being outsourced most commonly? What kind of positions do your clients take up with you?
I think it's like you said, it's the non-billing roles are the really big roles to outsource and offshore. Warwick and I started with Warwick's background in finance and my background operationally. That's the side of the business we understand really, really well. So anything within the finance department, the compliance, administration, we are finding a lot more resource roles, talent acquisition roles coming up. And more people are dipping their toe into the full 360 recruiter, but that's not really where we specialize. Ours is very much from finance and all support, compliance, those sorts of roles.
And to be honest, now resources, we've scaled ourselves into resources in the last 2.5-3 months. It's a booming market now. People are interested and want to have a conversation about it. So lots of the companies dip their toe in and say we'll do credit control, or we'll do finance admin or payroll admin, and then when they see it's working, they go, actually, okay, can you show us some resources, sort of thing, or talent acquisition, and let's have a look at some CVs and see what we can do. And then they also say what we promote is, say, if you have someone already, try keep the team local. So if they're based in Cape Town or based in Durban, which are the two areas we really have grown our networks in, keep the rest of the team there. You can send them for Christmas lunch or Christmas dinner, or do you guys do quarterlies? Send them for a quarterly. You give them 100 quid, 150 quid each, or whatever your target is. Send them somewhere, get them nice and fancy. They can meet up and have a coffee or something like that. So that's kind of what we try to promote. Sure. Once companies go down that route of going, what else is out there? What else can we do?
Yeah, I really like the idea of outsourcing the resourcing, because I think you would find in most UK recruitment businesses, that's probably looked at as a fairly entry level position, where it's going to be really intensive in training and onboarding, and then also with the increased NI costs and general salary increases in the UK over the last few years, is going to be increasingly more expensive and probably harder to justify for the business to take on.
Yep.
And then also on the other side, though, we've also all had I'm just going to say we've all had these calls, hello, this is indeed, the robot. But yeah, if you're working, in a recruitment market where you're engaging professionals, maybe more senior level professionals, I can't see how that technology is going to, have much effect in engaging individuals, maybe on, a mass hire project where you're trying to hire hundreds of people. But, if you've got a market of 10, 20 engineers that you're trying to speak to, you really need to have someone to actually engage it on a human level.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Same with credit control is another big one. You want to build those relationships with your client base, which we've found to be really effective as well. I think, but all of these roles, I think, just lend themselves so well, effectively those non-billing roles.
Yeah, excellent. So, just to kind of pull things together, I think, in today's economy, we're seeing recruitment businesses really having to rethink how they staff, restructure their cost base, and refocus really on value driving activities. We've touched on, AI and automation being a huge part of that, to help optimize the output of their internal headcount and really to focus on increasing revenue per recruiter. But, I think we can agree that the AI should not replace the human aspects of the process. And offshoring certainly gives you access to talent that you need in person, and at a cost that businesses can sustain. Do you guys have any kind of final remarks? Anything you'd like to add?
Only that, and I think I've said it before, this is a really exciting time for businesses. It's a really good time to make these strategic decisions that are going to ultimately, increase the profitability of the business. Technology coupled with the right sort of outsourcing, offshoring decisions are going to really elevate where a business is currently.
Sure. And what do you forecast for the market over the next 12 months or so?
It's $1 million question, Dan.
Yeah,
indeed.
To be honest, I think more and more people are going to see the benefit of it. And like I said, it's not replacing, it's enhancing your team. Every company will look at it and go, we can hire one person there and spread the saving, internally. You don't increase your cost to the bottom line. Helps a lot. Hire 3-4 people, invest into, Firefish, which is invested into automation that saves your team hundreds of pounds, hundreds of hours a week, a year, sort of thing. That's where it's going to go at some point. I don't believe it goes full outsourcing, 100%. I don't believe that that's the right way to go any rate. I do think more companies are going to go, actually, it's a great way to think about it. You know what I mean? We can win both sides of this.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And I think we're in the time now with outsourcing where, having someone working remotely for your business won't feel that different from somebody actually working for your business.
Yep.
So, what people might have said were challenges around collaboration and integration in previous years, I don't think would be particularly valid concerns now. So, I definitely think we're at a very exciting time, and how AI will push the market forward on that will be really interesting to see as well.
Agreed, 100%.
Absolutely.
Well, no, thank you very much for your time, gents, and it's been a pleasure speaking to you.
Yeah,
thanks,
cheers.
David. Really good.
Very
Excellent.
good.